later this year. Even the indie scene hasn't really had much coming out, at least that I've seen, though I don't spend a lot of time scouring Steam for every single game that does come out. That being said, August did have a few things that came out that I played. More so than June or July, at least. Enough that I thought I would make a video giving off a few impressions on some things that released this month that I did play. These aren't reviews, there's more so first impressions, as I don't have more than a few hours in each of these games that I'll talk about. I haven't had much time, but I did play enough to warrant a video, so without further ado, let's get into the games I played this month, or last month. Starting things off, we got Star Valor. Star Valor is a top-down space sandbox RPG-ish type game. It reminds me of a really old Flash game I used to play growing up called Flash Trek Broken Mirror. It was some really old game on it was one of them free online Flash games. It was like a Star Trek ripoff. This game reminds me a lot of that. It's obviously more in-depth and stuff than that was, I think. I must have been in middle school, I think, maybe a bit younger, but I remember playing the shit out of that game like over 10 years ago now. This game is a modern version of that, or an alternative to a game called Star Sector, which I haven't played, but I have heard good things about. Anyway, that's enough about other games. Let's talk about Star Valor. This is a game where you start out in a small ship and you generate a galaxy based on your preferences. The galaxy generates and it throws you into the game and lets you freewheel it. It's one of those games, an open world sandbox that kind of lets you decide what you want to be. You could be a bounty hunter, you could be a trader, you could be a freighter, a cargo hauler, asteroid miner, pirate, bunch of stuff. It's like Skyrim in space, except not, like, at all in the slightest way. It's like single player top down Elite Dangerous. Yeah, that's a bit better. Now, this game has a lot going for it. It has over 80 different ships and 160 different pieces of equipment to customize your ships with. Now, this is a staggering amount, and the game does do a good job at rewarding you just the right amount to make you work to earn things, but not make things too much of a grind. Now, it still is a grind, but if you take jobs and systems that are close to your level, you can earn equipments and credits at just a good enough clip to feel rewarded, and not just like you're spinning your tires on an endless grind. The game gives you freedom to do whatever you want and join whatever faction you want, and it doesn't restrict you. It's also super satisfying to start out in a tiny little piece of crap ship that you can barely survive any combat with and have a puny cargo hold, to gradually getting bigger and better ships with more and more weapons, or gradually building up a small squad of ships. Just watch your back like I did. You could also hire mercenaries from the start for a pretty decent price, so even if you're struggling early on, you can still get help. The game also lets you choose what jobs to take, which is nice because it lets people who are struggling with combat take a break from that and do other missions to get a better ship or better weapons before they come back to it. Now, there are a few problems that I have with this game that hold it back from being truly great. My first problem is just how generic and boring this world feels. Now, this is one of the problems that a lot of people have with procedural generation, that when you rely upon it too heavily, it can feel very cut and paste, and this game exemplifies that to a T. The only real difference between each system is who owns it, how many asteroid fields, stations, and jump gates are in it, and what level it is. Now, that seems like a lot of potential difference, but it's really not. All asteroid fields are the same. The same goes for the space stations. The only difference being what missions you can pick up and what they buy and sell. Even the factions are lame, with the only difference between them being a few faction-specific ships and the name of the faction. There's no in-depth explanation of what the factions are and what they stand for or what their goals are, other than this is the mining one, this is the pirate one, this is the alien one, this is the human resistance one, this is the trader one, etc. It's just really boring, generic crap with really no depth. And what this results in, at least for me, was a feeling of meaninglessness. Like, other than getting better ships and weapons, which, I mean, is its own reward, what's the point of doing anything? What's the point of joining any of these factions or fighting in any of the battles that happen other than to just get loot and money? There's no real faction to believe in or goals to work with or characters to get to know or anything like that, which could be done because it was done in the tutorial. You had a character that was doing stuff and dialogue and things, and so they've shown that they can do it and add more life and character to the stuff, but as it stands now, there just really isn't. Like, yeah, getting new ships is fun, and for a lot of people, that's going to be enough, but for me, it's just not. Like, I need a reason to care about these cookie cutter systems I find myself in. Characters to care about, or factions to believe in, or a reason to do anything other than cool ass ships and big ass guns. It doesn't help that most of what you're doing, not as a complete result of the boring world, is just repeating the same shit over and over again. You go to the same boring feeling system, kill pirate, go back, collect reward. Accept mission, go to system, buy goods, go back, collect reward. Over and over and over and over and over again, this is what you're going to be doing. And yeah, you get the choice of what missions you want to take, but these missions have all the depth of a Skyrim Radiance quest. That's the second time I've mentioned Skyrim in this video. Why do I keep bringing up Skyrim? What the fuck? My point is, the copy-paste missions paired with the copy-paste systems make the game get stale pretty fast, or at least it did for me. There's also a few minor things that could use some work. I mean, the UI is a bit clunky, for one. It would be nice if I could just look at my mission log and see what items I need for my freighter quest, and then open up the station menu to buy what I need while keeping the mission log open, but unfortunately, you can only have one menu open at a time. So what I ended up having to do was to go back and forth over and over and over again to check my missions, and switch to the station one by one to see if they're selling the items that I need. The save system's also kind of stupid. Like, I've never really been a big fan of games that don't just let you save whenever you want to. And this is one of those games. You have to be near a friendly station or in a friendly system to save, which is kind of fucking annoying. This is stuff that could definitely be fixed. As I said earlier, they've shown that they can fix it. I think that they could if they tried. That being said, there's a lot to like here, and I can see a subsection of people really enjoying this and not caring about the things that I listed or the problems that I had, and just having fun building up a fleet and getting big ass ships and waging war and stuff. There are a lot of ships and weapons to experiment with, so I feel like with a bit more work, this game could evolve to be great instead of just kind of alright. It was just released, and the guy who made it seems pretty intent on updating and supporting the game, which, by the way, the game was made mostly by one person from what I can tell, which is crazy to think about because there is a lot of stuff here. There's definitely a lot of work into it, and you can definitely tell that this is a passion project, so definitely props to you, dude, and I'm glad. I hope this game sold at least decent for you. I think it did. It was on top seller for a couple days at least. Anyways, with future updates, I think this game could get even better, especially if they work on some of the things that I mentioned. Yeah, definitely think if you like what you've seen here, give it a try. I'll link it below in the description. The indie scene does have a knack for turning out a bunch of weird games that you wouldn't think you would ever see, but Wrath of the Lamb is definitely a proof of that. This game is like if Binding of Isaac fucked Animal Crossing and had a baby that was cursed by the Lovecraftian elder gods, who then wrote its life story in a pop-up book. Who would think to combine a cult community builder with a roguelite and cute animals, cult indoctrination, blood sacrifice, and Lovecraftian mythos like elder gods with a pop-up book art style? Well, apparently Magic Monster, this game's developer, would. This game is definitely unique, with no other games like it that I've played. Being unique doesn't make it good though, so is it? We can start with the aesthetics, which I thought were really cool. Now, they aren't amazing to look at. This pop-up storybook art style combined with the color palette give this game a complete individual look. The game's color palette is a dull but not gray. There's certainly reds and blues and greens, but even they're for the most part subdued, and certainly aren't vibrant, with the only exception being when the Elder Gods are on screen, where it glows this vibrant blood red just to let you know that shit's really going down. The pop-up book look also differentiates the game, and luckily for the most part doesn't make it difficult to see when the screen gets cluttered later on in the game when you're fighting multiple enemies at once. Either way, this game has a look that's all of its own, and while it isn't awe-inspiring to look at, it's not trying to be, and it does its job well while still being good. So, how's the gameplay? Well, I had a lot of fun with this game for the most part. It's definitely a weird combination of gameplay styles, community building, Animal Crossing cult sim mixed with a hack and slash roguelike. But I think this game pulls it off pretty well. I think there will undoubtedly be people who favor one part of the game over the other, as people who play top-down roguelites and the people who play community builders or town simulators don't really overlap a ton. This is even reflected in some of the comments and reviews I've seen on Steam saying that they just wanted to skip the cult building stuff to do the levels and vice versa. I think that's something that you're going to run into when you combine wildly different genres like this, and I think the only way to really alleviate this is to make both parts of the game good, first off, and secondly, interweave the mechanics of both together in clever ways. I think the game does decent jobs at doing this and juggling both styles of gameplay, though I'd be lying if I said I didn't think it hurt the game in the long run. Now, I actually really like this game, and I greatly enjoying my time with it. I still have to beat it at the time that I'm recording this, but both parts are fun and with a lot more depth to their systems than I was expecting. The roguelite parts are really fun and feel really good to hit things. I've been reading comments online that a lot of people find the game too easy, but I'm playing through the game on hard and I've been getting my shit kicked in. I'm just over halfway through the game now, and some of these screens are just merciless. Alright, so this is what I was talking about, right? Look how many enemies are on this tiny ass little fucking screen. Look at this shit. Yeah, all these fucking enemies that you gotta keep track of at once. These guys explode. These guys can, like, come at you in a short charge attack, so you gotta keep an eye on both of these. I mean, this is ridiculous, dude. And look at this shit. Here's another one. So there's an enemy up here. There's these enemies here, and these guys spit out smaller enemies that come after you. So you gotta keep an eye out on all this shit. On top of it, these bushes that they can hide in to fucking attack you out of nowhere. And there's another enemy over here. I mean, it's just ridiculous, dude. And look, and on top of that, these guys shoot out fireballs. So you gotta worry about these guys shooting out fireballs. You gotta worry about these guys shooting out these fucking small things that explode. And you gotta worry about these fucking things coming after you. On top of which, you can also get caught behind rocks like I did here and get fucked through the fireballs anyway. And it's ridiculous, dude. Luckily I was able to get out of it there. But I mean, this is what I'm kind of talking about. Some of these screens are stupid. And here's another one. So look at this. Look at these enemies coming from the top. Look at all the enemies on this screen, dude. I mean, and this is, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm making it look easy here because I have a bunch of upgrades and stuff. But, like, look at this. And then there's these things that come out of nowhere and explode. These guys shoot at you. I mean, look, my point is that people say this game's easy. There's some difficult screens in this game, and this isn't even the last level. But I am also very bad at video games, so keep that in mind. Either way, there's a decent variety of weapons, power-ups, and enemies. There's a lot of these cards that you can get, which I'm not really a big fan of, to be honest. Like, I don't know, I'm just sick of every game having to have some lame-ass card collecting system. But it isn't too obnoxious here. They're basically like power-up items from Binding of Isaac, except there aren't nearly as many and they aren't nearly as cool, unfortunately. Like, most of them just boil down to damage buffs or extra hit points, or maybe you attack slightly faster. One damages enemies when hit. Just really basic stuff. There's not really any interesting ones. Still, it feels fun to play through. The screen shakes just the right amount when you land a big hit or combo. The weapons and curses feel good to use. There's just the right amount of feedback. It's not perfect, but what's here is fun. Cult management stuff is also pretty fun. Now, I've always been the type to like these kind of games, and I really do like the pop-up book Animal Crossing type vibe that this game is going for. So I did have fun with it. That being said, while there is still more depth to this than I thought, there's still not that much to it. You recruit followers while playing the roguelite parts and have to build them places to sleep and make sure they're fed. They also shit and puke everywhere, and if you don't clean it up, they get sick. They can interact with each other and make friends, though there doesn't really seem to be any point to this. The only stats that you really have to manage are hunger, health, and devotion. They're communal bars, so you can usually fill them pretty quick and you don't really have to micromanage, unless you don't have food or ingredients to fill the bars. You can make farms, which require watering and fertilizing, and you can build an outhouse so that there isn't shit everywhere and your cultists don't keep getting sick. You need to assign your followers to do these things in order to keep these things running. Each cultist also has their own level bar, which will level up naturally over time, and you can speed it up by interacting with them, but usually only once per day. Now, when they level up, they give you points that go towards your cult's level to unlock new things. So there is a bit of depth here, just not a lot. It is pretty fun to watch your cult grow and watch your underlings mine resources for you and watch your cult do rituals and stuff, and it does connect with the other parts of the game in a fun way. Both parts of the game are good, but I can already see a lot of people not liking this simply due to the fact that neither part of the game is really that deep or complex. Cult building sim part of the game isn't going to be deep enough to satisfy fans of community building games like Oxygen Not Included or RimWorld, I guess. Those are the closest games I can think of. And roguelite fans are going to be disappointed that it's not as deep as The Binding of Isaac or as rewarding as Hades. I mean, in a way, it is kind of unfair, as both of these games are dedicated to one genre, which is why I said earlier that I felt like it may have been a slight detriment as it's cursed to compromise. Luckily, it doesn't compromise too hard one way or the other, so neither part of the game really feels overlooked or unnecessary, but they do both compromise. I didn't have a problem with it, as I still enjoyed my time with this game, but I wouldn't be lying if I said that it wasn't a valid complaint. There's also the complaint that I've seen, which is that there is no endgame, or endgame plus, or whatever you want to call it, which pretty much highlights the point that I'm making. Almost every other roguelite has a new game plus with new items and levels and bosses and things like that, but Wrath of the Lamb had to make that compromise. I'm sure that this can and probably will be stuff that's added post-launch, But for right now, it is what it is. So, despite that last bit of rambling, I've actually really enjoyed my time with this game. It is fun on both sides of its weird and fucked up coin, and for the price point, I would say it gives at least 10 hours of good gameplay if you're godly and beat the whole thing and only die once or twice. So, I guess to some it would be short, especially compared to something like Isaac or Hades or other roguelites, which you can easily get like 100 hours out of. What's here is really unique, fun, and enjoyable, and I don't regret playing it. Yeah, I would recommend this one.
It is time, my lord, to engrave your legend into the world. But do not be hasty. To thrive in this vast and volatile domain, you will first need to study the lay of the land.
Total War as a series has been around for a pretty long time, releasing a lot of games over the many years it's been around. Now, I've never really played any of these games up until a couple of years ago, as to me it was just seemed kind of tedious, and I usually prefer less realistic settings in my games. It's just a personal preference. I know, I'm super basic. Creative Assembly, the people behind the Total War series, decided to take a gamble back in 2016 when they decided to adapt Warhammer Fantasy into the Total War systems and deviate a bit from the usually more grounded settings that their games typically take place in. The Warhammer world is one of my personal favorite settings in fantasy because of how over-the-top, tropey, and just not grounded it is. All the fantasy tropes are here in this world. Humans, orcs, elves, dragons, magic, trolls, ogres, and any other fantasy trope you can think of, it's probably here somewhere. A lot of stuff to tackle in one game, so they didn't. Total Warhammer 1 was released, with its map taking place in a small part of the world and focused on 4 different factions and races with their own unique mechanics. Now, I'm bringing all of this up to put into context how much work went into the Immortal Empires campaign. This campaign took the combined effort of an entire team of developers almost 10 years to bring this thing to life. 86 legendary lords with their own unique starting positions, 22 different factions that each have their own unique army rosters with their own strengths and weaknesses and their own unique campaign mechanics, 533 separate regions to control, and 378 starting factions. Holy shit! This thing is fucking huge.
That's what she said.
Now, I've only been a fan of the Total Warhammer games for a year or two, as I had heard mixed things about them, and not being able to create my own faction kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I wasn't too keen on the idea of not being able to customize the faction I was playing as, or not being able to choose my own goals. That changed a couple years ago when I saw Mandalore's video on the game, and I saw the crazy amount of strategy and depth that the game actually has, and saw how badass the battles looked in it, and I decided to give it a try, and the rest is history. The game has gotten deeper with each new race and faction added, and almost a decade of development has paid off in making one of the biggest, most complex strategy games out there. The RTS mixed with the 4X gameplay is wholly unique to Total War, and the Warhammer universe fits this mold perfectly. The battles are both fun to play and fun to watch, and the sheer variety of different units ensures that things don't get stale. The sheer size and scope of some of these battles is insane, and it honestly is a visual spectacle to just watch. With 22 unique armies in the game now, you'll never see the same battle twice. Most people who are going to play this, however, already know all of that. This is definitely something for the fans who have been around a while and have picked up most of the games and DLC along the way. There's certainly an argument to be made that requiring owning 3 games to activate what is arguably the best part of the game is too high of a barrier to entry and makes it hard to get new players into the setting. The amount of DLC can be overwhelming when you look at the Steam page for these games. I probably spent hundreds of dollars in total buying games and the DLC and actions and things because I really like the games, but it is really easy to avoid the DLC you don't care about and only get the ones that you want to play, as the DLC races will always be in the game to fight regardless. You will need the DLC if you want to play as them, however. So I guess if any new people who don't know about this stuff are watching this and this sounds interesting or looks interesting, just get the third game and see if you like it first. It's on Game Pass, so if you have that, you literally have nothing to lose, other than time, I guess, and hard drive space. If you like it, look into getting the first two games to get the big combined map, and the Blood DLC, as that makes the battles look infinitely better. Then you can pick and choose what DLC packs you want. It can still be pretty pricey, but nowhere near how bad the actual tabletop game got, according to some guy on Steam. So I guess consider this to be the PC gaming tabletop miniature figure equivalent. Yeah, as a massive fan of Total Warhammer and owner of all the DLCs. I've been trying to play this a lot, and I probably will off and on for years to come. Now, my graphics card sucks ass because it bugs out and crashes my PC all the time with a bunch of different games, and it really doesn't like Total Warhammer 3, so I can't play for longer than like 10 minutes without it crashing to desktop. So I admittedly haven't played a lot of this, but I'm planning on getting a new graphics card soon. The only reason I haven't got one yet is because those prices, Nvidia. Like, dude, what the fuck? These cards are almost 2 years old now. Well, who the fuck is buying these things? Why are they still charging this much? Anyway, whatever. I'm waiting for the prices to come down on those, or I'm hoping they do. But if they don't, I might just have to bite the bullet because it's pretty bad. It's been pretty bad for years now, but I really want to play this game. The map is, I'm pretty sure, the biggest pre-generated map in any strategy game. I mean, I can only imagine how long it would take to conquer the entire world with just one of these factions. They're still going to be making DLC for this for a while, as it is really popular and it's making a lot of money for them. And not to mention, there's a whole area of the map that's still locked off, presumably for DLC. This game is actually so popular, it single-handedly revived the Warhammer Fantasy world, which Games Workshop had apparently killed off, which makes me excited for what's to come. As I said before, Warhammer Fantasy is in contention for my favorite fantasy setting, probably along with Elder Scrolls. I would love to see more from this universe. Speaking of Elder Scrolls, how badass would it be to have like an RPG set in the Warhammer Fantasy verse? Or even like the 40k verse, with how popular that is. I can't believe it hasn't even been done yet. I mean, think about it. You get to pick your race for Warhammer Fantasy, or your Space Marine chapter, or whatever for Warhammer 40k. And then you can just go around and do quests for different factions, or different Space Marine chapters, and legendary characters from the lore. And you have a massive sprawling RPG with quests and factions and choices and consequence. And, like, seriously, how has this not been done yet?
Why are we not funding this?
I mean, I'll even take a top-down isometric RPG if you want to save money. Like seriously, somebody find an executive at Games Workshop to pitch this idea or something, because I guarantee you it would sell a shit ton if you made it. Just saying. You don't even gotta credit me. Either way, I'm happy to finally be playing Immortal Empires on Total Warhammer 3. Even though it doesn't run for shit on my computer, I'm sure it will soon. And I'm excited for what the universe might bring for this game and the
There is no option for the Sisters of Twilight, who fight bitterly in defense of their home. But the decadence of the Dark Elves has summoned Slaaneshi invaders, and it is Lord Mazdamundi, the Slan mage priest, who must hold fast at the borders of Lostria.
And now for something completely different.
As an added bonus, I'm tacking on an extra game here at the end that didn't come out this month, but I did play it this month, and I wanted to talk about it, so let's get into it. Now, the indie gaming scene in the past few years has done a great job at innovating and experimenting with the gaming medium, and is one of the biggest triumphs of the 2010s. The smaller scale of indie projects allows people to get creative and create things that wouldn't be seen in most mainstream titles. The most relevant to the game that we are reviewing today is games without any combat or any real gameplay other than investigating things and talking to people and experiencing dialogue and atmosphere. Things like Stanley Parable or Disco Elysium or maybe even Stardew Valley, where most of the enjoyment from the product will be gained through things other than the gameplay itself, unless you consider listening to characters talk or deciding what to do next gameplay. Now, Citizen Sleeper is another one of these games. Maybe not as critically acclaimed as some of those other titles I mentioned, but that's kind of why I wanted to cover it, as I think it is a really quality little title, and I think it's a good play for fans of sci-fi and narrative focus. This is a good game to play when you want to just kick back and relax and soak in some good atmosphere, have a philosophical debate or two, and enjoy a weird world with lovable characters. The art style of Citizen Sleeper is certainly interesting, with the station itself having this dark, industrial, cel-shaded look, with the characters looking like they came from a Studio Ghibli film or some other anime. I don't know, I don't watch anime, sue me. Which is slightly off-putting at first, but it did grow on me after a while, as the character designs are varied and unique enough to keep from feeling samey. The Eye, the location the game takes place in, has a really unique vibe that the art style certainly lends itself to. So what is Citizen Sleeper about? You play as what's called a sleeper in an emulated human consciousness put into a robot body to serve as an indentured slave to a corporation. That's right, it's about to get real existential and philosophical up in here. You wake up on the Eye, a station on the edge of nowhere built and abandoned by corporations after profits dried up, but yet is still home to countless refugees, outlaws, and other strange people that end up here. You came onto the station via a storage container and are saved by a scrapper. He isn't exactly hostile, but he doesn't really seem to care too much about your well-being either. He gives you a place to sleep at least, and some work so you can earn chits, the game's currency. Tells you the bad news, that you are dying, slowly, well, aren't we all? Apparently, the corporations who put human consciousness into robots hardwired a feature in to make the robots dependent on them so they couldn't escape. Sleepers need to take a drug that only the corporation makes every so often, or they will slowly break down and die. To make things worse, the corporation also had a second failsafe. Your body acts as a tracking beacon, and there are hunters coming to find you. So you're in a race against time to find a way to get your hands on the life-saving drugs you need and trying to disable your tracking beacon before the hunters find you. Of course, this is only part of the game, as the game is very open-ended. There are many different people to meet and places to find, each offering various quest lines and missions to accomplish. All actions in Citizen Sleeper use dice rolls. At the beginning of each term, you roll dice and use those to do various tasks around the Eye. The higher the dice roll, the higher the chance of succeeding at an action, and there is a lot to do. On top of trying to make enough money to avoid the life-saving drugs you need and trying to disable the tracker on you, you also have to make enough money to eat, as apparently in the world of Citizen Sleeper, even robots have to eat. You will undoubtedly spend a while in the beginning barely scraping by, barely making enough to survive. As you level up and increase your stats, you can get perks that will help out with prices, and as you explore the Eye, you'll find more and more ways to make money, so it will get easier. Most of the interesting parts of this game, though, isn't the Yahtzee-esque rolling of dice to determine whether you can eat the next day. It's more about the colorful cast of characters in the Eye itself. Now, there are a bunch of characters, and all of them have different quest lines and objectives to help them with. Some are more interesting than others, but nobody here is unlikable, and the writing is solid enough that they're at least interesting to learn about. Even if they aren't, they can at least give some backstory to the station or one of the factions that inhabits it. For an abandoned, half-complete space station, there are a lot of people struggling to make a home here, and a lot more struggling to get out. Most of which are either refugees or survivors that worked for corporations that have abandoned them here. There's definitely an anti-capitalist screed to the whole project, but the game never dwells on the topic for very long, and I feel that's to its benefit. One character might have you on a quest line that explores the evil megacorps responsible for the current state of the eye and how they view people as tools to achieve an end. Then another character might have you questioning the nature of consciousness and what it means to be sentient. Then another might have you helping out a struggling single father try to get a place on a colony ship leaving the eye so he can get a better life for his daughter, exploring how love can change a person and where that love comes from. That quest line is probably my favorite one in the game that I've played so far. Though there is a time limit initially, the tracking beacon does get solved after a while, and the drugs you need to stay alive are easier to afford as you explore more of the station and find more ways to make money. Different parts of the ship are locked behind paywalls, that is, paywalls you bypass with in-game currency, and you'll have to save up to bypass, but it's not a problem you have to deal with until later on. But it's not a problem that you have to deal with later on after you've already unlocked everything. The game really is more about the journey than the destination, and it lets you do what you find interesting. And there is a lot to do. The visuals, combined with a lot of the atmosphere and laid-back nature of this game, can often leave you in a somewhat trance-like state while playing, and the music lends itself to this. Soft notes and slow beats that leave a sort of melancholic serenity. I guess it would be considered lo-fi, but I'm not sure. Either way, I liked it, and it did a lot to add to the feeling of the game, and was a pleasant backdrop suited to the calm but purposeful pacing of the game. So that's Citizen Sleeper. It is also on Game Pass, so if you have Game Pass, I would certainly recommend playing it on there, or at least checking it out. But for $20, you could certainly do worse, and they are updating it and adding new content for free, so if you like narrative-focused games, or just like interesting sci-fi, or you just want to play something different, I would definitely recommend this one. So those were the games I played in August. It has been a really dry summer, as I said at the beginning of this video, but I think there are fun games to play if you look hard enough. I know there's a couple releases I missed. I didn't play Spider-Man. I haven't played Spider-Man yet. I don't own a PlayStation. I never have. I'm working on it. There was that new Saints Row game, which is an EGS exclusive, or I would have at least tried it out, because I wouldn't say I'm a massive Saints Row fan, but I'm a casual fan of the series. I beat 2, 3, and 4. Never played the first one, but I did play 2, 3, and 4, and I beat all 3 of those games. So, but again, it's an EGS exclusive, and I don't like EGS. So, Chinese spyware bullshit. That sucks. But I might have dodged a bullet with it, because people are saying that it's bad, and it didn't look that good from the pre-release stuff, so it's probably for the best. But anyway, that's the video for today, guys. I got more videos coming out over the next month. I got at least 2 or 3 videos coming out in September, and then I'm gonna buckle down. I'm making a bunch of videos for October for Halloween, because I love Halloween and I want to make a bunch of videos for it. So September might be a bit sparse for videos. Hang in there, be patient. Make sure if you like the video, press the like button, subscribe, comment down below if you agree with my takes on any of these games. If you played them, let me know what your opinion on them was. Follow me on all the social media, websites. This is Faded Zephyr, signing out.